What up, friends? It's a new day's dawn, and today we're going to be reviewing The Weeknd's newest album, Dawn FM. This is the fifth album overall by Canadian singer-songwriter Abel, also known as The Weeknd. Admittedly, I'm not familiar with a lot of Abel's work. I've heard the hits, of course, and I'm familiar with the general aesthetic and sound of his, but I haven't listened to too many of his projects front to back. However, from what I have heard of his older material, Abel really outdid himself this time, man. An excellent homage and fusion of synthpop, dance pop, and new disco, alongside with some pretty intimate vocal and lyrical experiences, make this an album that you really don't want to pass up. After an elegant opener of a title track, alongside introducing fucking Jim Carrey doing the narration on this album, we get to the first main track of the record, Gasoline. Immediately from the opening synth chords, you know you're in for something good. The bubbly bass and simple yet driving rhythm are impeccable, and I love how dramatic and theatric Abel's vocals are here. Strangely enough, nobody's gonna understand this, but I get data rock vibes from these vocals, even though I know that's not the intention. I'm also a really big fan on how seamless that transition is from verse to chorus. It's a subtle sort of lively that has a very ethereal yet fun vibe, like we're having an existential crisis while also trying to still enjoy life. And I think this is absolutely captured by the line, "It's 5 a.m., I'm a nihilist, I know there's nothing after this, obsessing over aftermaths, apocalypse, and hopelessness." Continuing the subtle vibes and beat-driven groove, we have "How Do I Make You Love Me?" It's elegant but has a touch of life thanks to that bouncy bass and Abel's poppy and catchy vocals. It's like taking a new wave and synth-pop tune and just injecting it with new disco goodness. The waterfall effects of these synths here and there alongside that punchy bass during the chorus create a mesmerizing effect. The desperate love angle in the lyrics fits this duality of sounds, feeling both the longing of not being able to have this girl, but also the infatuation that he might be able to get her. After that, we get a seamless transition into the next track, Take My Breath. Bigger and more ominous synth presence immediately set this track apart from the others that preceded it, and I feel like the dramatic nature of these instrumentals helps give the track an identity of its own too. I love the use of the sampled and distorted vocals, almost feeling like an Underworld or Chemical Brothers song. After that intro though, we get an infectious bass-driven groove alongside Abel's very wistful vocals. I also like how he subtly incorporates the intro melody into the background of the rest of the track, too. It still has some sensual undertones, though, capturing this intimate moment with his girl, while also adding to the sort of afterlife themes of the album as well. The gritty, muffled guitar at the beginning of Sacrifice already gives this track an identity, however, the spacey piano and Abel's haunting vocals just take this track to the next level. Love the flows on here, and that transition to the chorus is just fantastic. It's dramatic yet somber too, saying, "I hold you through the toughest parts when you feel like it's the end, 'cause life is still worth living." His groovy delivery also hides themes of acceptance though, as Abel is learning to accept that he can't sacrifice everything for somebody who isn't willing to do the same for him. With Out of Time, we are slowing it down a bit to take on the elements of some city pop sounds. He sampled Midnight Pretenders specifically for this, and man, this is chill. Love that light and airy synth alongside Abel's very delicate flows and vocals. That chorus is just euphoric, and I love how warm and intimate this track feels. A solid beat, fun vocal inflections, and ad-libs alongside a dreamy instrumental all combine to create a really mesmerizing love song. I'm also really digging how Jim Carrey comes in at the end of the track to, once again, tie this song back into the overarching themes of the record. Here We Go Again has a big focus on the vocals, with the instrumental taking a bit of a backseat this time. I do think the instrumental is pretty decent, however, I think it is very funny to hear Abel crooning about how he's in a much better position right now than his ex is over such a light beat. It's pretty amusing. The lyrics can sound a bit bitter here and there, however, I do think it does sort of add to the narrative of the project as a whole, as he's taking a look back at his life, both the beautiful and the ugly bits. Tyler, the Creator's feature does help reinforce this narrative in the same way, however, I feel like it's a bit too short, and he kind of comes in out of nowhere. There wasn't as seamless of a transition compared to a lot of the other previous tracks. His integration into the track overall just could have been smoother, I think. The huge electronic bass presence in Best Friends creates a wall of sorts that signifies a change in sound for the project. While the second half of this album is still good, it's not as dynamic as the first half is. This song is still fun though, despite going into a more dark and booming pop route. It still has that ominous sound, but in a more apparent and oppressive way. The sound also fits this sort of betrayal that's going on in the lyrics, where two friends are just kind of splitting apart after thinking that they could have gone somewhere together. If There's Someone Else continues Best Friend's trend of sort of stripping back the new disco elements and going into a more subtle electro-pop route. The vocal performances are still good, and there are some punchy bass lines and fun synth moments here and there, but it does lack the distinct energy that songs from the first half had. The lyrics are also a bit similar to the previous track, however, I do like the lyrical angle of Abel realizing that he can't expect much from his partners considering that he hasn't been the best boyfriend in the past to begin with, especially in the line, "I don't deserve someone loyal to me, don't you think I see?" However, with Don't Break My Heart, we have a skeletal little R&B jam here. That pre-chorus is suave as hell, and the vocal cadence is really fun. The chorus itself is also really engaging, and we get all these synths sort of crashing down on Abel's melancholic vocal delivery. The whole track has a sort of downcast vibe, and the instrumental kind of falling apart in places is actually pretty reminiscent of the lyrics too, depicting a relationship doing the exact same thing. I really love how he used the sounds of the song to back up the narrative. It was pretty clever. I Heard You're Married is the only track on this project that I don't like, and I hate to say it, but it's purely because of Lil Wayne. Abel's part is actually pretty well done, with some funky guitar picking, impactful bass, and soaring vocals. Unfortunately though, Wayne kind of ruins it because it sounds like he hasn't fully booted up yet. It's like he gets more robotic the further his verse progresses, really killing the sort of natural and warm vibe that the track had before. Like, I'm not getting any of the sort of sultry energy from Wayne that I was getting from Abel's part. It's like he woke up at 5 a.m. and realized that he hadn't recorded his verse yet, so he did it half asleep and then just sent it over. Less Than Zero, however, is a really pleasant synth-pop tune that marks the last main song on the record. The synths are light and delicate, as Abel has an ethereal delivery over the fact that he might have missed his chance with someone that could have been the right one for him. The word that describes this revelation to me is bittersweet, especially as the reverb and guitar come in during the chorus. These really add some dynamic touches to finish off the main ideas of the project. Phantom Regret by Jim is an interesting little outro that gives Jim Carrey the time to flex his poetry chops and, again, wrap up the main themes of the record. I think his words do a great job in expressing the sort of beauty and regret that this album displays, and I think the way the instrumentals sort of build as his verse goes along was really well done. It's an honest showcase of Abel's life, and I like how he views it as a sort of journey using Jim Carrey as a sort of third-person perspective on said journey. With Dawn FM, Abel effectively created an overarching look on his life, the good, the bad, and the ugly. The instrumentals were mainly the most impressive part about this project to me, however, it should be said that he did a great job interweaving his lyrical themes and delivery into these instrumentals and had every part sort of support each other. A lot of his instrumentals actually backed up his storytelling as well, especially in tracks like Don't Break My Heart. There were a few interludes on this project that I didn't really talk about that actually added to the experience, which is pretty rare for me, to be honest. The first half is definitely stronger than the second half though, even if the second half is still pretty good, and I feel like the features were kind of mishandled. I also feel like he could have trimmed the album a bit to make it a bit more tight instrumentally and lyrically too. That said though, this was a very exciting look into where Abel might take his sound from here, and I'm just really interested in seeing where he'll go next. I'm feeling a light 8 on Dawn FM. This was a really good project. Of course, we do have to talk about album covers on this show, and I think this is a pretty great album cover, man. This look at Abel in a more older, aged form is really interesting and helps reinforce the afterlife themes of the record, like he's kind of looking back on his life with more experience. And I love the sort of dark black and blue hue that everything has on here. Not only does it fit the more somber instrumentals of the project, but it also fits the lyrical angles too, not only dealing with the beauty of his life, but also the uglier moments as well. I will say that though, but there's also that subtle little glow coming from behind him that adds a warm little touch of orange to the cover. I think that's really well done, and it does show Abel kind of learning from his mistakes, you know, like there's some sort of light waiting for him. He's done all this stuff, he's struggled, but at some point he realized it and he's working on it. So I think this was a pretty great album cover. But those were just my thoughts on this new project by The Weeknd. What did you guys think? Did you think this was a really interesting step forward for him, or were you kind of missing the sounds that he had on his previous projects? Let me know. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, ring the bell if you don't want me to send you to the afterlife. And until the next one, farewell.